We will call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Shani Appleby. Here. Johanna Edwards.
Here.
Nick Gunderson.
Here.
Scott Rasmussen.
Here.
Jim Zandro.
Here.
Bruce Brunner is absent today.
This meeting and all meetings of this council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, so the citizenry may be aware of the time and the place in the agenda of this meeting. Now I would ask that everyone join us in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Jim Zandro.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would need a motion then to approve the agenda.
We'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda. Any comments or concerns on the agenda? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I would look for a motion then to approve the minutes from our regular council meeting on May 21st, 2014.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular common council city meeting minutes from May 21st.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Do we have any citizens' appearance?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right, then next we'll move into open public hearing on proposed East Alfred Street project assessments.
I'll make a quick comment. This is on the resolution which is item 9C. It's a preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment taxing powers under state statute 66.60. The Public Works Committee had an informal discussion. We had 3 to 4 attendees. What I can say real quick is we'll open up the public hearing right now, leave it open for most of the meeting in case anyone comes in a little bit later. We do have a movie here, but if you'd like to take public comment, the proposal for the assessments, now the project is going to be split between Weyauwega County and the city of Weyauwega for County F. It's basically Alfred Street from Lincoln east to the city limits. The sidewalk has been included. The city is covering that portion. The assessments themselves are going to be on curb and gutter that's installed. The total project is estimated to be about $710,000. The total for the curb and gutter assessments is about $11,000, and you do have a sheet that's item 8B1, page number 1 in your packet. But if you want to open the public hearing, that should be good. You'll probably want to take a motion to open the public hearing now, and then we'll leave it open for the duration of the meeting now.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for the proposed East Alfred Street project assessments.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to open the proposed East Alfred Street project assessment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
You'll probably want to check and see if
Is
anyone would like to
anyone-
speak.
Here for that?
I'm here for it, but I haven't really nothing to say on it at this time. I was just curious on what's on the paperwork, or are they gonna be doing initial measurements afterwards?
Yeah, the way this will work, the resolution, it's actually kind of a slow process. Tonight is a preliminary resolution. Basically, the city council is declaring we're going to be charging special assessments, or we're going to exercise our power to do so. When they pass that resolution, that meets one of the requirements of state law. Now, when the project gets going and all the final costs are determined, they'll have another public hearing and another resolution then to finalize the assessments. But as proposed, these are the estimates that were put together right now. The resolution itself lays out we do this public hearing tonight, there will be a report filed with the Public Works Committee once all of the costs are known. So if this is an estimate on the assessments. If the costs come in lower, the assessments would be lower. If they come in higher, we will wait until we get to that. We don't anticipate at this point that they would be higher, but that's basically, it's a formal process. The council's declaring their intent to assess. But when we get to the end of the project, the council could vote to waive those special assessments too.
Okay. Then we will leave it open and we'll move on. Presentation by Dennis Tweedale and Terry Christians, League of Municipality.
Thank you for having us. I'm Terry Kristen with Westland Insurance Services. I'm your agent representing the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Mutual Insurance. And Dennis is up here tonight with us, and we're going to watch a video, basically the conduct and behavior of a board member, a council member, and so forth. And Dennis Tweedale.
Sure, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot this one.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to sit up here until the movie starts. And as Terry said, my name is Dennis Tweedale. I've been involved with the League's insurance program going back to the mid-1980s. So there hasn't been too much that's gone on with regard to workers' comp, liability, property, whatever kind of suits that I haven't seen. We insure about 380 cities and villages, and started your insurance this year, and thank you very much for that. By the way, while I didn't bring popcorn, you will get about somewhere around $700 to $800 for watching the video. So just how many times have you been paid to see it? Starting in 2008, we the video that we're going to see was produced by my counterpart in Colorado. And the messages in the video, for the most part, deal with federal issues and just regular public official duties and such, and how to try to stay out of business. We do have some very short parts at the beginning and ending that talk about Wisconsin and how it differs a little, but in 2008, we thought it was important enough to show this because we were getting so many land use claims, so many employment claims, that we just thought there needed to be a little better. So we offered this as an incentive to the insureds back then and to new insureds that come. If you look at the handout in front of you that's titled Public Official Claim Examples, Descriptions. Excuse me, Chief, you've got copies also. The video talks about public official claims. That's as opposed to a general liability claim, because a general liability claim, there's usually an accident. Someone usually got injured, they got hurt and was due to negligence, possibly on an employee's part. Public official claims talk about acts that are done by you as the board, sitting board here, by your department heads, by whomever. You intended to do what you did, the person didn't like the outcome, and therefore they bring a suit. And these are just some descriptors off of our claim system that kind of describes briefly who or what the claim is about for me, but I think you kind of get an indication there in terms of what's going on. The reason that these claims are very important to you and they're important to us is, following the video, I'll be going over some of these statutory protections that you have as individuals. Just want to make sure that you're aware that your personal assets are not at risk and that there's very good protections in place, both with limits and with regard to discretionary immunity that I'll be covering a bit. In federal court, the limits set by the Wisconsin legislature are not recognized. And the other problem when we're in federal court is if the plaintiff wins, we have to pay their attorney fees. And the going rate right now for attorney fees in federal court is about $475 an hour. And so that adds up real quick, in particular when they've got a case that they know is likely to be a winner. It kind of drags on forever. We can't even get, in some cases, a plaintiff to make an offer, sort of thing, to settle, sort of thing. So much of what's dealt with in this video does deal with cases that are in federal court. So with that and the little handout that you have, as you go through the video, you'll see that there's a screen that's turns blue and it's just got important words on. Don't worry about writing anything down. All the important words will be summarized in this little handout. But it's good, and any other committees that work on behalf of Weyauwega, I would suggest that they take a look at it too, because there are consequences to the actions taken. So with that, Pat, if you could
Yeah.
get it going. Move over here.
A couple of you guys may want to move around. Maybe we can move some chairs over that way too.
Hey, this is interesting
Yeah,
stuff.
don't leave
Usually,
now.
this
is the highlight.
clears out when you talk about insurance.
Here's some extra chairs. This is good stuff. Yeah, good stuff. You won't get to see this on Fox or HBO.
It's all right.
It's only here.
Excuse me.
The staff at the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Mutual Insurance Plan want to thank you for taking
I'm gonna grab a light. Oh no, I got the speaker plugged in.
the time to view this
Is it on?
program.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Risk management professionals in Wisconsin and other states agree that when we educate our public officials, we can help to avoid the conditions that lead to litigation. The Colorado Intergovernmental Risk Sharing Agency has authorized us to share with you a program which was prepared to help recognize circumstances that can create liability in cities and villages. The themes are universal to communities throughout the country. There may be a few differences in how the courts treat issues in Colorado and Wisconsin. We'll talk about those at the end of the program, but the lessons that we can all take from this program are common to all of us.
Oh, hello, Dan. Congratulations on being elected as a council member.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm real excited about attending my first meeting and being sworn in, although I'm a little nervous.
Nervous? About what? You were elected by a landslide.
Well, there are several things I'd like to accomplish, but I'll be the first to admit I have a lot to learn. I don't want to end up like former Councilman Smith. I want to have a successful term, but I don't want to end up being sued.
Hey, Dan, you'll be joining us tonight.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, I'm Margaret Taylor. I've been a council member here with the city of Cottonwood for 10 years, and mayor for the last 2. During my time with the city, we have made a lot of progress, but also a few mistakes. Certain members of the council have created messy liability situations that have cost the city a great deal of money, hurt our public image, and stalled important projects. And in some situations, elected officials have paid personal liability claims out of their own pockets. The purpose of this video and accompanying handbook is to help you avoid the mistakes that can lead to liability and identify best practices that will allow you to be successful as an elected or appointed official.
That's a lot of good information. Well, thanks, Bill. I'll see you tonight. Oh, Mayor, do you have a few minutes to discuss some of those past mistakes?
Sure, Dan. Come on in. Have a seat.
Thank you.
He referred to Councilmember Patrick Smith. He promised during his campaign he would never allow Megamart to build a store in Cottonwood, and he was pretty vocal about it.
Stay away, Megamart! Stay away, Megamart! I've had similar opinions about giant retailers, although I haven't been as vocal as Mr. Smith. Where'd he go wrong?
Well, I don't think he ever accepted the fact that as an individual council member, he really didn't have the authority to act on his own. That's why Smith was never able to get anything done. He was pretty vocal about the few issues he was interested in, but rarely worked to build consensus within the council. Dan, pretty much everything we do requires collaboration within the framework of our council. Elected officials can't get anything done as individuals.
I see your point.
So the first lesson is to think and act in terms of we, not I. Apart from a few duties vested in the mayor, the laws that govern our city don't give any powers to individual council members. We've got a diverse council with a lot of different perspectives, and we can only accomplish our goals by working together. Now that you've been elected, your role changes dramatically. You're no longer an outsider promoting your own agenda. You now have to work with your fellow council members to accomplish the city's goals as a collective body.
Let me ask you more about Councilmember Smith. The Megamart deal, it was approved by the council, although by a close vote. What problems did Smith cause?
Remember all of his anti-Megamart statements? When it came time for us to actually hear and act on Megamart's land use application, he should have recused himself.
So we shouldn't have voted.
That's right. He shouldn't have participated in the hearing or voted. Smith had made it well known that he was aligned with the Megamart opponents. When we're acting in a quasi-judicial capacity, such as when deciding on a land use application or liquor license, we must be fair and impartial. We can't do that if we've already made up our minds before the hearing. Councilmember Smith had made it clear that he opposed the Megamart application. He was not acting as a fair and impartial decision maker. Fortunately, the Megamart application was approved by a small margin. Otherwise, the city could have been accused of a due process violation.
Due process?
Yes, the U.S. Constitution guarantees the right to a fair hearing as part of an applicant's due process rights.
During my campaign, I talked with a lot of my neighbors who are also anti-growth. I expressed to them my concerns about protecting our small businesses from giant retailers. Will that prevent me from voting on similar issues?
Well, the question is, if one of those big retailers comes before the council with a land use application, can you be fair? Can you make your decision based only on the evidence you hear and the requirements of our land use code? And can you set aside your previous discussions with your neighbors?
I can't ignore my neighbors. They elected me to represent them, not ignore them.
I'm not saying ignore your neighbors, but when an application is pending, you should not have discussions with anyone outside of the hearing. Our city attorney calls these discussions ex parte contacts. Your decision in a quasi-judicial matter must be based on the evidence presented. So when your neighbors want to speak with you about a pending application, explain to them it's inappropriate for you to talk about the issue outside the hearing. Suggest that they come to the hearing so their concerns can be heard.
Well, last year I called Councilman Miller and asked him to vote no on the pit bull ordinance. Did we engage in an improper ex parte contact?
No, that was a different situation. The council's consideration of a pit bull ordinance was a legislative matter. They were not dealing with the rights of a specific applicant under an existing law. The council was considering a new citywide law, so they were acting as legislators. Lobbying and other ex parte contacts are acceptable in the legislative context. But when you're in a quasi-judicial role, you've got to think and act more like a judge and refrain from engaging in or allowing ex parte contacts.
It makes sense when you put it that way. It's important not to base my vote on my biases or prejudice and only consider the evidence presented at the hearing, like a judge.
Exactly. The other thing to keep in mind is to make sure you have no conflicts of interest when you're voting. If you were appearing before a judge and you learned he had financial or other conflicts of interest, you'd expect him to recuse himself, wouldn't you?
Well, sure.
Well, people who appear before us in a quasi-judicial matter expect the same. To be unbiased decision makers, we must be free from conflicts of interest. If we do have a conflict, we need to declare it, recuse ourselves, and not participate in the hearing or decision.
I think I understand. I think I recall reading in the paper about another incident involving Patrick Smith.
Oh, that was probably the lawsuit involving our library expansion. The council had selected a very qualified contractor to manage the project. Smith was always hanging around the construction site, thinking it was his job to micromanage the project. Needless to say, Smith ended up in a verbal confrontation with the contractor. Things got personal, and Smith started talking to other council members about terminating the guy's contract. He also spread some vicious personal rumors around town about the contractor.
That wasn't very smart. Did he get the contractor fired?
No, but the contractor sued Smith personally for defamation. Our insurance company declined to defend Smith because it was alleged he was acting outside the scope of his authorized duties and acting in a willful and wanton manner.
So that's why Smith had to pay for his own legal defense?
Yes, he was not acting within the scope of his authority as a council member when he started those vicious rumors.
I heard he had to take out a second mortgage to pay his lawyers and a large settlement.
Smith learned his lesson the hard way. Being outside the scope of one's authority or acting in a willful and wanton manner will result in a loss of liability protections and insurance coverages. That's good, thank you. Now, Patrick Smith isn't the only elected official who's gotten himself in some trouble. Our former mayor, Joe Appleby, put himself in the middle of a personnel issue.
I think I remember this case. Tammy Williams was the director of public works, right? Didn't she try to stop sexual harassment in the street division?
What do you think about wearing something like that to work?
Guys are jerks, idiots.
Guys, I've told you about this before. You can't keep doing this. Bert, I need to see you in my office.
In trying to clean up the division, she fired the street supervisor, Bert Simpson. Mayor Appleby, who was drinking buddies with Simpson, was furious and made it his mission to get Tammy fired, and he succeeded.
You know, your job can't be replaced.
She brought a lawsuit claiming the mayor retaliated against her for trying to eliminate the harassment. The jury awarded her $150,000 in punitive damages that Appleby had to pay out of his own pocket.
Wow. What were the key lessons in this case?
First, don't act on the basis of personal motives. It was obvious Mayor Appleby wanted to fire Tammy Williams to get revenge for his friend Bert, and that was not in the scope of his authority. Second, we need to delegate personnel issues to the city administration. The council shouldn't be dealing with individual employees other than those who report directly to the council, like our city administrator. We should be focusing on the major legislative and quasi-judicial issues and leave administrative matters to staff. And third, never retaliate against someone for exercising their legal rights. Not only is retaliation against the law, but these claims are among the most difficult and costly to defend. We also had another fallout from the Appleby litigation. The press learned during the trial that Appleby was telling a lot of inappropriate jokes, and he was emailing them to the entire council. So the media demanded to see all of the council's emails over several years. Our city sure looked bad after the press got a hold of those.
Well, I didn't realize emails were considered public record.
Sure. While there are narrow grounds for not releasing them under some circumstances, the basic rule is that emails may be public documents that anyone can review. If you don't want something splashed on the front page of the newspaper, we need to keep it out of our emails.
At least we're not the only city making these mistakes. Remember the scandal involving Councilman Arnold over in Clarksville after he got stopped for speeding?
Yes, he was caught on television yelling at the police officer for stopping him. I cringed when he shouted at the officer, "Don't you know who I am?" Talk about an abuse of power. And that brings me to perhaps the most important lesson. As elected and appointed officials, we must use our powers wisely and with civility. To misuse our position is absolutely improper and is not within the scope of our authority. We shouldn't try to put ourselves above the law or try to get some sort of special privilege because of our position.
Explain what you mean by acting with civility.
Well, as elected officials, we're perceived as holding the most powerful positions in the city. Because of that perception, our words carry a lot of weight. A harsh or ill-considered comment from any of us, especially if made public, can be extremely harmful to our employees' morale, as well as our public image. I once heard Appleby refer to our female employees as the staff hotties. It was embarrassing. Also, we should not participate in or encourage staff bashing in public meetings. We need to keep the focus on issues, not personalities. And then during Tammy's lawsuit, some of the jokes the mayor told during executive sessions were made public. We took another bashing in the press for those. Negative behavior like that can affect our entire organization. If we set a bad example at the top, we can't be surprised when it filters through the entire workforce. I'm so glad we've moved on from those days.
Well, this is eye-opening and a little frightening. Do we have any protections from liability?
Yes. Fortunately, we live in a state where our liability protections are strong. For one thing, we have an excellent Governmental Immunity Act. Our Public Officials Liability Handbook has a good summary of our liability protections. But to retain these protections, we must stay within the scope of our authority and not act in a willful and wanton manner.
You've used those terms before. What would be considered willful and wanton?
Well, the actual legal definition is found in the handbook, but basically, it's the kind of conduct that got Appleby in trouble. When he got Tammy fired, he was more than reckless in disregarding her legal rights, purposely trying to damage her career.
Do we have any other protections?
Sure, we have excellent personal immunities, recognized by our courts when acting on legislative and quasi-judicial matters. But we do not have strong immunities when dealing with administrative problems. That's another reason why we need to stay out of administrative issues.
Got it. Let the city manager do his job.
And finally, we've got good insurance coverage, but that coverage only applies when we act within the scope of our authorized responsibilities and does not apply to punitive damages, as Mayor Appleby learned.
I see how these are all interrelated. Best practices, liability protections, and insurance coverages. And each area calls for us to meet certain standards of conduct. As long as we meet those standards of conduct, we should be okay.
I think you got it, Dan.
Thanks, Mayor. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge so I don't have to learn the hard way. Thanks for your insights.
You're very welcome. And one of the other best practices we've put into place is liability training. We hold a session every year for our council members, boards, and commissions. We have a session scheduled next month.
Great. I'll be there.
Great.
Hey, thanks again, Mayor.
Absolutely. Dan's a sharp guy. I think he'll make an excellent council member, as long as he follows these best practices. Think and act in terms of we, not I. When acting in a quasi-judicial capacity, be fair and impartial. Don't make up your mind before the hearing. Base your decision on the evidence you hear at the hearing and the applicable law. Don't participate in the hearing or the decision if you have a conflict of interest. And don't engage in ex parte contacts. Refrain from personal or retaliatory actions. Focus on key legislative and quasi-judicial issues and leave administrative matters to the staff. And maximize your liability protections by staying within the scope of your authority and avoiding willful and wanton conduct. I hope this video has helped you identify how to stay within the scope of your authority as an elected or appointed official, maximize your liability protections, and enhance your effectiveness as a civic leader. Good luck.
Thank you again for viewing this program. We hope that it can help you recognize and avoid some of the more common things that can cause a lawsuit. Like Colorado, Wisconsin has significant protections through municipal and discretionary immunities. Like Colorado, Wisconsin also has a premier insurance program through the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Mutual Insurance Plan. The insurance provided and the protections authorized under Wisconsin statutes provide defense and indemnity for persons who may be sued for things done while carrying out the duties of a public official. Unlike Colorado, that protection does not always end in the face of allegations seeking punitive damages. For more information on how to avoid conflicts, violations of law, and the circumstances that can cause a lawsuit, remember to consult your own city or village attorney to discuss any questions you may have. You can also call the staff at the League Insurance Plan, who will be happy to help.
I like at the end where the lady says, "Good luck." Kind of like it's a challenge. There are not, I don't think there's not a case that they talked about there that I haven't seen, like say over the years. And when I look at the 6 largest claims that we've had in the program, 3 of them have dealt with land use issues. 2 of them were payments to the claimant and his attorney in excess of $2.25 million each. We've had several large payments up in Sturgeon Bay from some of the stuff going on there. We've had 2 personnel actions that were in the high 6 figures, and we had a police claim which was just short of $1.5 million, sort of thing. So big claims do happen, and when they happen again, it's because they're in federal court. They talked a lot about judicial, quasi-judicial, a little bit about quasi-legislative, the whole thing, and that. The easiest way to remember that is when you're discussing something that's going to affect the city as a whole, that's really legislative. You're going to pass a new law, you decide to put a stop sign up, you decide not to put a stop sign up, that's affecting everybody here. When someone comes and if they're sitting here waiting for applying for a liquor license or a variance or a land use permit sort of thing, and you make a decision, now you're doing actions that affect a individual or just only several individuals as opposed to the community as a whole. So that's when they're talking about, watch out for those, because those, when you're doing your quasi-judicial stuff, if we don't follow proper policies and procedures, and a project doesn't go, or it goes and it goes wrong, or goes bad, that's when someone goes back over, well, why did this happen? And if they find something in the record or whatever, that's when the suits start. Now, we defend those, and we're going to pay them, but let me tell you, any of you that have been involved in a lawsuit, it's no fun at all. There's a lot of mental stress that goes on with that. A couple other things I want to point out with regard to conflicts of interest. I have run into some absolute doozies, including we had one where a realtor was sitting, as a council person, was using that quote-unquote inside information to try to cut deals with friends to buy places. I mean, it's just, that stuff always comes to light. And the way I tell people is kind of like with regard to the sexual harassment they're talking about, it's really pretty simple, doing sexual harassment training. And I think the same thing holds true here. If what you're about to do were reported on the newspaper, on the radio tomorrow, your real motives for doing it, would your teenage daughter want to go to school? And if she doesn't, well, you better really rethink who or what it is you're doing. Or if what you're about to do, is that something that you would want done to a family member or to yourself personally in a financial transaction. Everything you do is just about, pretty much open records. And speaking of open records, I see you all have, I'm presuming either you all have groupthink or you've supplied the computers. Please do not use your personal computer or your business computer to do any city business. If someone does have your personal email or business email and they send you an email, send it to the city server, answer it from your city account. And then that way, if a claim happens and somebody wants to see the email trails, which they will. You can't hear a thing in the news today, it's, whether it's Lois Lerner with everything that's going on there, whatever, they will go after the emails because that's where everything is at. And if you have been doing city business on your personal or business computer, the deputy sheriff will come and take your computer, or at minimum, remove the hard drive. And they'll give it back to you when they're done scrubbing it for any and everything they want to find. And we've had a number of suits where the people say, but I can't do my business without it. Well, you should have been thinking about this. So I'm glad to see the setup here, and I truly appreciate that. If you go to the handout that has the state of Wisconsin on the top, and it lists different statutes, I'll go through this real quickly, don't worry about that. It's, but this is really protection for yourselves. In the video, they're talking about the mayor and that department having to pay money out of their own pocket because they were assessed punitive damages. That's a Colorado law, that is not a Wisconsin law. If punitive damages were assessed in a case that involved you, and it was within the scope of your duties, the city is responsible for that payment. We have that coverage under the insurance. So that part of the video, don't worry about. We weren't able to edit that out without, making a big mess. Generally, the punitive damages that are held in this state are usually with police actions. And just recently, and actually it wasn't really police actions, it was the town of Beloit, the fire commission and the council did some really stupid things with regard to what was going on internally with the police chief using racial epithets and people asking him not to, and that, and he fires and reassigns people. And they awarded two different awards of $500,000 each in punitive damages. Again, it was covered, not our company. By the way, we also don't insure Milwaukee. Footage there, so God, don't think you're anywhere near them, nor do we insure Madison. Milwaukee's self-insured. The city of Madison takes a $250,000 retention and purchases excess above that. So the majority of the communities we have are your size. Some bigger, of course, a number of them smaller. The first statute here, 895-46, this is really not only for you as council people, but for the department heads, any employees, this and even the people that are serving as on committees, city committees. This is really your insurance. Because what this says, without having to go through the thing, is if you're named in an action, whether it's individually or in the scope of your employment, and the actions about 8 lines down, you're acting within the scope of your employment or the scope of your duties as a council person, the city has to provide a defense and they have to pay any judgments, period. I mean, it's just that broad. The only time, and over the past 30-some years, I can only think of 4 situations where we stepped outside of, a suit was, submitted to us by an individual, very clear that the actions did not arise out of their duties, sort of thing. And one of them that, I don't know what kind of heated contestants or contests you have for your seats here, but we had in a Milwaukee suburb where a council person running for re-election just said god-awful things about an opponent. And the opponent sued him for defamation of character, just way outside. So he said, hey, I was within the scope of my duties. No, you weren't. You were a private citizen running for re-election for an officer, for an office, I think. So we stepped outside of that. We've had situations where employees, usually it's in the Parks and Rec department, sometimes in the police departments, have been charged with sexual abuse, sexual molestation, and there's both criminal charges and civil damages sought. We'll defend the civil damages until the person is found to be guilty or not guilty. If they're found guilty, then we step outside for the individual still covering the city and the department. We have a provision in the policy that when criminal charges are brought against an employee for work arising within the scope of their duties, because it's discretionary on your part whether or not you're going to pay those. We do reimburse up to $25,000 for criminal defense, sort of thing. It's very, very seldom that we run into that, but that's something that I would not invoke, and actually it says it right in the policy, I would have to get the council approval before we agree, because the last thing we want to do is step between what you have a option to do and what we do in the insurance policy. So anyway, this is your insurance policy as such for all of the big bucks you get for serving as city council people. How to file a claim. The left-hand side of this page tells a claimant, if you want to submit a claim to a governmental entity, you have to follow these steps, right? And if they don't follow the steps, the courts don't take it lightly, sort of thing. We get many actions dismissed because people did not file a proper claim or they missed the filing deadlines. Now, one of the items, and I don't know what past practice was, but at least you will find out with us, is when you get a claim filed, you send it to us, we do our investigation. If we believe that there is no liability, we will send it back and say, Pat, please put this on the next council agenda and formally disallow the claim. It's not that we're shirking our duty. By doing that, the claimant has 6 months to file a lawsuit or they're forever barred. So to get it down to 6 months versus 6 years for property damage and 2 to 3 years depending on circumstances for bodily injury, that means a lot, sort of thing. So if we just deny the claim rather than you, it does not start that 6-month statute running. So, but we'll have done the investigation. And if there is a negligence claim that we're responsible for and we don't have other immunities, we take care of that and we let you know. You don't have to worry about doing that. But just so you're aware. On the right-hand side, you go to paragraph 3, paragraph with numbers in it. Other than automobile, in the Wisconsin courts, $50,000 is the most if you're injured by a governmental operation other than the state. $50,000 is the most you're going to collect. And that's attorney fees, that's pain and suffering, that's bodily injury, loss of wages, that's everything. We are almost considered like an Alabama of the states with regard if you're a plaintiff's attorney. So very, very low limits. You go to Michigan, most of theirs is unlimited. Illinois, it's unlimited. Minnesota, I believe, has a $1.1 or $1.6 million limit. So $50,000 isn't much. It keeps your premiums low. But let me tell you, we use that a lot. Next page, motor vehicles. The limitation for motor vehicles is $250,000 per person. So when you read about large awards in auto cases, or you see the ads for the attorneys on TV, you won't see it against the municipality, sort of thing, unless we hurt a whole bunch of people. So 250,000 again is it. If a child was hurt, the child gets up to 250,000. The parents have another $250,000 claim for medicals since they're responsible. So it might be $500,000 sort of thing. But biggest claim I've seen, again, going back more than 30 years, is $650,000. Auto case against, and this is a lot of insurance over a long period of time. If you're using your vehicle on city business, you're going to a conference in Madison, you're doing whatever, not just driving to and from here. It's like work comp, driving to and from isn't considered part of your duties, or isn't considered work. But if you're involved in an accident, your policy responds first. It's just the way the laws are in the state of Wisconsin. A policy purchased specifically for a vehicle always responds first. We would have excess coverage, and the city responsible for any excess over your coverage, or if you're going wrong uninsured. Okay. 89383, the next one, again, this just reiterates that damages caused by the condition of the road, and the courts have expanded that to sidewalks and public parking lots. So if there is a deficiency in a sidewalk and public parking lot, and we knew about it and didn't do anything about it, possibly we've lost, some of our discretionary immunities to just, deny coverage. But if we're found, if there's negligence on our part, we have to pay, again, $50,000 is the maximum. So just reiterating. There is a very interesting, forget the footnotes, if you go to the 893.83, the last sentence, any action to recover damages for injuries by reason of an accumulation of snow or ice that has existed for 3 weeks or more may be actionable. So Within the first 3 weeks of having a snowstorm, the first 3 weeks of having an ice storm, we have immunity, period. Doesn't mean people can't bring suits, they just will not go anywhere. So if you want to save money during the wintertime in your budget, wait until the 19th or 20th day and then plow the roads. So if it snows or we get an ice storm, we get a new 3-week period. So it's very important, and of course, we've got the weather services that we're able to rely on too. But this does work, so it works on your city streets and the city sidewalks, the crosswalks. So very, very good protection. My counterparts in the southern part of the country always have fun talking about this. I think they think we're covered in snow all winter long. In the last statute, 895.52, talks about recreational immunity. We have never paid a liability claim for a recreational activity ever in the league program. We defend them, we get suits in, but any attorney worth his salt knows about this claim, they're not going to even bring a suit. And there's been some terrible injuries. Don't get me wrong, you know, even though I'm in insurance, I still have a heart and I still pump blood every now and then, but the legislature has given us very good protections to protect the city and the state taxpayers. The recreational immunity applies to the recreational activities. It doesn't matter if you're renting out a pavilion. It doesn't matter if you're charging a fee for your swimming, sort of thing. The only time we lose our recreational immunity is if we charge spectators, or if you field a team yourself. So if your Parks Rec Department has a Little League operation going, then we wouldn't have the recreational immunity if somebody got hurt. We would still have that $50,000 limit, okay? A lot of times people seem to have questions on that. Now, do you have any ball fields that the Lions or the Rotary or someone uses for softball or baseball tournaments and
We have
beer and fundraising?
one ball field that the Little League Baseball uses, but it's not run through the city. It's their own nonprofit group, and then we do have an adult team.
Sure.
That uses the field too.
If they were to charge admission, you know,
Sure.
to watch the games, we wouldn't have our statutory immunity. We'd still have the 50,000. But don't worry about that. That's not a reason not to do what you're doing, just so you're aware
Sure.
of that. Okay. All right, the one other handout, and then I'd like to see what questions you have, is has municipal or in recreational immunities, or the claimants didn't do anything wrong, why did our insurance deny their claim? And our number one claim we get, liability-wise, is slip and fall, trip and fall on sidewalks, curbs, crossings, whatever. And the number two is sewer backups. Okay, now, kind of forget, do you have no-fault sewer here?
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
we did purchase that.
All right, well, that's good. I say that's good. 40% of our insurance purchased the no-fault sewer. Let me use that as an example in terms of discretionary immunity. When there's a sewer backup, if it was an accidental backup of which you had no knowledge, that homeowner or the business did not order the city to please deliver 6 inches of sludge into my basement, putting it mildly. They're not happy, they're upset, we did nothing wrong, it was your main that was blocked, what am I supposed to do? Sort of thing. Again, if you have a maintenance plan and you followed it, and there was no blockage that you were aware of that you didn't handle, we would deny those claims, because we've got discretionary immunity in terms of how we handle the city operations. Well, with sewer backups, that didn't sit well, and starting back in the early 1990s, we expanded the league's coverage to include, as an option, no-fault sewer backup. So now if there is a blockage in the main, or if water main breaks, so either sewer or water, sort of thing, and with water, usually it's going to follow the path of least resistance. So if there's a break in the winter and it goes up to a wall and pushes it in eventually, we'll cover those claims, up to $100,000 on a per occurrence basis, maximum of $250,000 a year. There's only been 3 instances that we've exceeded that. One of them was the village of Bayside in Milwaukee. We had 900 claims, $100,000. You do the math and it doesn't. The coverage for this should be under your homeowners. The coverage is available in a homeowner's policy. Even on the claims, if they're presented to us under no fault, we'll adjust them. The homeowner or business has to show first that they've submitted it to their own property carrier. And if there's coverage, that pays first. And if there is no coverage, we'll pay, but we only pay on an actual cash value or a depreciated basis. That's how the judicial system works. If someone else has damaged your property, the person that damaged it, all they are responsible to do is to pay, in theory, what the fair market value of that damaged property is. But under homeowners, you're purchasing most likely replacement costs, where they do not take depreciation into effect. So we've always suggested to have in your flyers that go out from your sewer utility, reminding people this is the coverage that they should probably take a look at, even though you have the no-fault coverage. Because if you have a 10, 15-year-old carpeting, it's going to be ripped out. You're not going to get much money for that. So this handout goes through some real-life examples in terms of claims that we've had that explain why we deny a claim, even though there may have been negligence on our part. And again, this goes back to the legislature's grant of what's called discretionary immunity, meaning if your city staff has a choice of how to do something and they choose one way and things don't turn out the way they thought they had hoped, that doesn't, even though we're negligent, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to pay. So just so you're aware, and it's maybe it'll be a little easier to understand after you read it, maybe it isn't, but it's a hard concept, especially if it happens to us individually. Take as an example this winter. How'd you do with your frozen water laterals?
We were one of the first communities in the area to start the water run, so that people started the drip. Once we started that, around February 7th, then we were fine, but we had frost that was at least 7.5, 8 feet in the ground in most places, and as Mr. Bayman knows, we had a couple areas that when they froze, they were frozen, couldn't steam them. We dug up 1 or 2, found out what that costs, and it wasn't fun, just like everyone else.
Yeah, most of the community, at least you're using steam, the injected hot water. Most of our communities do it the way they've been doing it for 40 years. They get that big old sucker of an electric arc welder and 200-foot cables, and they go inside the house and they disconnect the pipe at the water meter inside. And they hook one end, think of a big battery charger. They hook one end on there, they hook the other end out by the main where what they call a buffalo box is, and they crank it up. And if things work right, and for the most part they do, and it has for years, it'll thaw in about an hour. So I think there's so much heat's going through the pipe. Obviously it doesn't work on PVC. We had 14 claims, so unfortunately, where the electricity decided not to follow the path that it was supposed to. In every one of the cases, it wasn't the home that we were working on that got damaged, it was a neighbor's home. So you try to explain to the neighbor that, hey, sorry about that, but we've got discretionary immunity. It doesn't go over well, sort of thing. So it's, but again, these are laws that if we ignore them and then the right case comes before the Supreme Court or an appellate court, they're going to say, well, look, you haven't been using them anyway, so what do you care, that we overturn it, sort of thing. And they are important. They keeps your premiums low. One other item, you don't have a handout, but I'll leave this with Pat, is by participating in the Leagues program, you have automatically the services of an organization called Agility. Agility is a provider of portable generators, portable communication, satellite communication discs, portable office buildings, whatever you want to call it, and computers. So if a tornado were to come through here, or if you have a fire in this building or your city hall and you need temporary space, or if lightning strikes a lift station and blows it out and you don't have a generator, these people will get generators to you within 12 to 24 hours. And they can also have a portable classroom, double wide on site and set up with under 48 hours. So you can continue business as usual. The directors for the LEAD program purchased this on behalf of all of the insured participants, because the theory is when something bad happens in a community, the community wants to be able to get a hold of fire and police when they need to. So if it's widespread enough, like it was in Sandy, or if we have a big windstorm or whatever, we can get satellite connectivity if we need it. More importantly, they also want to be able to turn on the water and know the water runs, and they want to be able to flush the toilet. If you can do that, you're light years ahead of a lot of other communities. And this, it doesn't pay to have them. It makes sure that you're going to get it. The cost to take care of paying for it at regular prices, not the inflated prices when there's a disaster, that cost comes through your property insurance with a coverage called extra expense. So if it's a hailstorm, if it's a lightning strike, a fire, then the extra expense coverage takes care of the cost to rent that equipment. But just wanted to let you know, I don't know obviously what kind of contingency or disaster plan you have as a community as a whole, but that's,
Well, we did.
that's just another piece.
And I had gone, I think you all remember, I went to the policyholder conference, and one of the gentlemen from Agility was there to talk about it.
Smith, yeah, nice.
And it was kind of an eye-opening thing for me, because last August, I think it was August 6th or 7th, when those tornadoes went through Outagamie County, and there was a big ordeal about the sirens never went off. Well, they started maybe 3/4 of a mile or a mile north of here, knocked power out to the whole city for at least 12 hours. And then some parts of the city were out for a couple days. We didn't have any generators anywhere, and we found out our treatment plant takes about 12 hours to fill to the brim, and thankfully we got power back in 12 hours where we didn't compound any of the damage. But we were calling everybody, and everyone was looking for generators. Everyone was scrambling, and we've got some plans, and actually since that policyholder conference, we've been looking internally at getting all of our plans together, because Agility has the planning tool as well.
They have a portal that, in theory, if you can take the time and get the utility people in particular to put in locations, is there a pad to park a semi on, how much cabling are we going to need, what kind of connection size and that. You store that in there and you give a call, they're going to have stuff out almost immediately, as opposed to tracking all that information down before they can figure out what to send out.
And that we've been working on. That's really, really good, but.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear you.
Yeah.
So, any questions from you? I appreciate the time you've given me. Everyone's still here. Good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. And any questions on any? I mean, I'm just a proverbial fountain of knowledge when it comes to work comp or liability or property.
I guess if you could, just maybe give a little bit more of an explanation on no-fault sewer coverage. I believe we've got a population of about 1,900.
Right.
And it's $1.75 per
head of population.
So for about $3,300, we have this coverage. And if you could explain, what do we buy for that $3,300 that we don't have if we don't spend $3,300?
You buy happy citizens. That's really what you're buying. You are not required to. Okay, and like I say, about 40% of our insureds purchase it. What that does is, again, when we get claims submitted to us for sewer backups, where it's just a straight, were we or were we not negligent? And usually we're negligent when we have a maintenance plan and we don't follow it, or somebody can't remember, or it's like, geez, I think we televised it somewhere back at the 2003 or 5, but we don't have any records, whatever. We don't have maintenance, a good maintenance plan, we're usually pretty much sunk. That's usually not the case. Of the claims submitted where there is not no fault, so for the other 60%, we pay less than 40% of those. We defend them all, we adjust them, but between discretionary immunity and no negligence, you know, there's just no payment. And then people are very unhappy,
yeah.
because very few people buy sewer backup coverage as an endorsement to their homeowners. And to buy $25,000 of coverage, Terry, I don't.
75. You get,
75
let's just say that,
something.
$150 for 50 grand, I think, 150 to 180 for 50 grand worth of coverage, and that's gonna be the area, you wanna make people happy, you guys start including that documentation in their sewer bill, saying, hey, please remind your agent to double check that we have even $5,000 of coverage, because it's replacement cost, versus us coming in and saying, sorry, that's from whatever year, and I know it was your grandmother's, but we're giving you the depreciated price.
Yeah, so what the no fault does
really
is
important.
it makes money, some money available.
Right.
Normally, the people, they've turned it into their homeowners, they've been denied, no coverage. Because there's a specific exclusion for sewer and water backup on your policy. As Terry said, some may have 5,000 just as a little throw-in. That doesn't go anywhere. So they're happy that we've got something initially. Then they get unhappy and they find out we pay a depreciated value. But again, when they think back on it, you got something without the city of doing this. And I don't know where you pay for that right now, Pat, but a lot of cities and villages put that over onto the water utility bill. So rather than coming out of the general city budget, it's added on as an additional expense to the sewer bills.
Sure.
So I think, so that's, you're truly getting people that are grateful that there's something.
And if you need help with that wording, Cronenwetter
Sure.
has a nice little piece that I've used. I've given out, they've given me permission to give it out, so I can help you with that, so that you can communicate with your folks, hey, because if they can get it, their agent should be offering it, quite honestly. It's really one of those types of coverages that every homeowner should have.
Anything else? No, I don't.
Thank you.
Well, hey, thank you for your
Sure.
attention, I appreciate it. You know, when I look, I always like getting the agendas, because when I go through this, okay, Public Works, items 2, 3, and then item 9E, all look to me like they deal with contracts. And, Pat, you probably heard more than you wanted to me, but whenever you're dealing with a contract, don't sign contracts that include you indemnifying or holding someone else harmless or agreeing to insure them, sort of thing. Whoever writes the contract will write it in their favor. So, and I'm not saying anything about these people, I don't know any of them, obviously.
Yeah.
But you take, for example, your sanitation thing. If you have their form, there's very few that I've seen that are in your favor when it comes to that sort of thing, because you don't have pollution coverage for sanitary pickups. You have pollution coverage for sudden and accidental sort of thing, so always.
We do.
I always just.
Yeah,
look
this
to see
item
what
is
are you doing
their license to provide service in the community, but we are actually, we've got an RFP out for garbage and recycling, so we can,
Right.
July, August is what we're taking a look at that, but
So,
certainly.
just,
we'll
you know,
send it
just
to your way, too.
always watch what it is you're signing for. My, on the letterhead, I'm down at the bottom here, at least with regard to the phone numbers and my email, so if any of you are, Chief, do you have tasers?
Yes.
I love them. Best thing that ever hit the face of the earth, sort of thing. My number of rotator cuff knee injuries has plummeted with the police department. So they are just. Now, here's a question though, what does TASER stand for?
ECM?
Thomas A. Edison Electric Rifle. I never knew that until I was at a seminar once.
electric rifle, I love it, so.
Nice.
Good. Thank you.
Well, very good. Thank you guys very much.
Nice to meet you all.
Yep. Good to see you again. Thanks for coming.
Just call if you need anything.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for coming. Good to see you.
And keep the video, show it to whomever, that's.
Sounds great.
Fine, so.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, guys.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks for sticking around.
Yep.
Hope you learned something at least on sewer backup, right?
We will move on then to the committee reports. Finance Committee.
On behalf of the Finance Committee, I recommend approval of checks 3059 through 30658, totaling $217,619.25, and the monthly financial statements.
I will second that motion. Or I will make a motion to approve the total of checks.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the checks totaling $217,619.25 and the monthly financial statements. Any comments, questions, or concerns on that? I'll ask for a roll call.
Sandro?
Aye.
Rasmussen?
Aye.
Appleby? Aye. Gunderson?
Aye.
Edwards?
Aye.
Motion carried with all ayes.
And that's all we have for finance.
That is all, thank you.
Thank you. Public Works Committee.
All right, I'd like to recommend approval of the East Alfred Street project assessment interest rate at 3%.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the East Alfred Street project assessment interest rate at 3%. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Let's make a quick comment. That's, the letter had been sent out to property owners this week. That's part of the preliminary resolution that you have under 9C. This is a recommendation, but the committee had recommended to go with 3%. In the past, when the city borrowed for projects, they charged 5-6%. In this situation, though, city's not planning on borrowing, so the recommendation is 3%. It can still be changed, though, down the road, once you get to the final assessments, but this was just a recommendation for now.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'd like to recommend approval of a quote from KLM Engineering for well number 1 reservoir inspection for $2,200.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded for the quote of KLM Engineering for well number 1 of $2,200. Any questions or comments?
Just a real quick comment. This is for over at Elizabeth Street. It's an inspection of the underground tank, and we had 3 quotes. This was the low for KLM, $2,200.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, I'd like to recommend approval quote from Water Tower Clean and Coat for drop pipe repair at tower number 1 for $4,500.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded for the water tower clean and coat for drop pipe repairs in tower number 1 for $4,500. Any questions or comments?
The DNR mandates that we repair this tower. This is the old one up on the hill in South Mill. It's an overflow pipe that comes out the outside of the tank that had blown off 2 to 3 years ago. When the DNR performed their sanitary survey, which is a full inspection of everything that we do, this was one of their mandates that we get this fixed. We did get multiple quotes, and this was the low quote, just to repair that drop pipe.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I'd like like to recommend approval of a 46-cent raise for Jim Albright for additional responsibilities and duties.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to recommend the Jim Albright with a 46-cent raise for additional responsibilities and duties. Any questions or comments?
Just real quick, we discussed this at Public Works. We did talk about the turnover in the department. One of the employees had taken a new job. One employee had been hurt at work, was on light duty. Another was on family medical leave. Instead of hiring one extra summer employee at $8 to $9 an hour, Mr. Albright had been planning on working in the park 2 days a week this year. He's on nearly full-time, helping out with other duties, not just park duties. He's out doing street and some water and sewer duties. So the trade-off would be for this summer, a 46-cent raise rather than paying an extra employee $8 to $9 an hour for the same work. And he's already familiar, so from day one, he's been here for 6-7 years, so he's familiar with basically everything he's doing. So that's the recommendation from the committee, would be the 46-cent raise. That gets him to $12.50 an hour. I don't know if I said that or not. Right now he's at $12.04.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Police, fire, and ambulance.
No action for council.
Thank you. Public health and relief.
No action for council.
Recreation.
This isn't here, this is we recommend a waiver of swim lake admission fees on January 27, 2014 to offer free swimming at the community summer fest.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? for
Oh, I will make a motion to
that? Okay.
recommend the waiver.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the swim lake admission fees for the July 27th, 2014 free swimming at the Community Summerfest. Any questions or comments?
I shall assume that we will have lifeguards available as we would any other day that the pool is open, correct?
Yeah, actually, we're planning on overstaffing for that, or having staff available. Now, last year we did the same thing, and it was 50 degrees, so we had maybe 3-4 people that were brave enough to go swimming. Now, this is twofold. Now, it's a good gesture for the city to waive the admission fees, but I also have to tell you that operationally, this makes things a lot easier too, because if kids want to go swimming for half an hour, get out of the swim lake and go eat or go play other games and then go back in the swim lake, it removes the headache of the city or the staff having to figure out who paid, when they paid, you know. So it's a good thing to offer. It's one more thing to offer, but it's going to help us out too. Hopefully the weather is a little warmer than last year.
Okay. Any other comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. On public property and purchase.
No action for council.
Okay. Planning Commission. We look for a motion to approve the sign permit application for the St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church.
I'll make the motion to approve the sign permit for the application.
Second? I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the sign permit for St. Peter's and Paul Catholic Church. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we'll move on to the new business. We need to to approve the we need a motion and a second to approve the resolution number 555, annual compliance maintenance annual report.
That's in your updated packet if you have that one. And it's a resolution, the report has been prepared. It's basically an annual report on our wastewater, regular maintenance. We received A's in all areas except for our load and capacity, which is something that we got a C on. So our GPA is a 3.81, which is above 3 is very good by the state. But there is a note, of course it's not loading up for me here, but the very first line where we got the C, Don Anzia had noted that the treatment plant upgrade project is going to take care of that. So the state, if you don't score very well or not so high in an area, they ask, what are you doing about it? Well, what we're doing is taking a look at the treatment plant upgrade. The full report is about 30 pages. We've got that available for your inspection too, but that resolution itself is it's a summary of how we're doing.
We have a motion for that.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second for resolution number 555, annual compliance maintenance annual report. Any more questions or comments on that? We'll ask for a roll call.
Edwards?
Aye.
Gunderson?
Aye.
Appleby?
Aye.
Rasmussen?
Aye.
Zandro?
Aye.
Motion carried with 5 ayes.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then. At this time, I guess I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing unless anyone else has something to speak on.
I'll make a motion. We close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to close the public hearing for the proposed East Alfred Street project assessment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Move on to new business number C. Need a motion to approve number 556, preliminary resolution declaring the intent to exercise special assessment taxing power under section 66.6 of Wisconsin statute.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions on it or comments?
I'll make a couple quick comments just for the instructions that are on that resolution. It lays out, again, this is the city declaring the intent. So you pass this resolution tonight. It doesn't put these assessments into stone, you know. We'll come back on this when the costs are known. It's kind of a quirk a little bit here. You know, when we had gone through this, we had assumed, well, here we're looking at the assessments, kind of a hurry up and slow down and wait situation here. But basically, it just outlines both sides of East Alfred Street, starting at Lincoln, running to the east to the city limits, for curb and gutter, which would be eligible for the assessments. The total amount assessed against the properties in that district shall not exceed 100% of the city's actual cost, which is a portion of the project. The recommended interest rate, which we had just voted on, to be charged if a property owner wants to finance through the city, is 3%. Now, if they don't want to pay the full amount up front and they want to pay it off over a number of periods, that will set up at a later point. But if they can borrow money from the bank, get cheaper than 3%, they could do that too. Going on to number 5, it lays out that the engineer and the Public Works Committee shall prepare a report which shall consist of, and there's 3 items, the final plans and specifications for the improvements, once the project is substantially complete, the actual costs of the proposed curb and gutter, and the total assessment against each parcel. Once that report is complete, the Public Works Committee shall file the report with the city clerk to allow for public inspection. Upon receiving the final report, the clerk shall cause notice to be given stating the time and place of a public hearing on the matter contained in the preliminary resolution and the report. So So it's laying out, here's your preliminary resolution. Once we figure out what this costs and how much it's proposed to be charged to property owners, we'll come back and essentially do this same thing. Public hearing, resolution, instead of preliminary, it will say final resolution. The way this typically works, when I talk to Thad, he does a little bit more of this with other communities. You go through, what we went through at Public Works, we had an informal discussion on driveway upgrades and things like that. And then by the end, you get a lot of the people that are interested. We've had a few that have stopped. Those will probably be the ones that you'll see at the final. And I would like to say 2 to 3 months we'll probably have that. So other than that, that is the preliminary resolution that is before you tonight.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. And any other comments or questions? I'll ask for a roll call.
Gunderson.
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Sandro.
Aye.
Appleby.
Aye.
Edwards.
Abstain.
Thank you. Motion carried with 4 ayes and 1 abstain.
Okay.
Mike, when it comes to the next one, I'll jump in. For D there,
What's that?
for D.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to table the temporary Class B liquor license, or retail license for Weyauwega County Fair until the July council meeting, and authorize the city attorney to meet with the fair board to set up security for the event.
I will second that.
Okay,
Here,
have heard the motion.
Sorry to read it.
can you?
You heard the motion. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
You second it?
I did.
Thank you.
We will move on then to new business E. We need a motion then to approve the license for pickup of garbage and recyclables for Grayson Sanitation for the term beginning July 1, 2014 and ending June 13th, 2015.
And again, this is their license to do business in the city. So for the businesses that contract with them, they need a license to be a garbage hauler through the city. This isn't the city contracting with them. That's another process that you'll see at Public Works next month. This is just their license, similar to the liquor licenses for businesses that serve liquor. This is their license for picking up garbage.
We don't have anybody else in the city that does this?
Nobody else that takes out a license that does it.
I think I've seen other garbage trucks around, so.
It could be passing through, but
Could
this
be.
is the one that we've had.
Okay,
But if you see others and you see other bins, you'll know that they haven't applied for a license to be able to do so. So that's a good point.
Waste management?
Mhm.
any other?
But they could be passing through town.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make the motion, we,
No.
to renew the license for pickup of garbage and recycling for Grayson Sanitation for the term beginning July 1st, 2014 and ending June 30th, 2015.
I will second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next, we'll move on to approving the application for Class A combination liquor and malt beverage retail license for the Weyauwega KD IGA and for Weyauwega Star Dairy.
I will make a motion to approve the applicants for the Candies IGA and also for the Weyauwega Star Dairy.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion's been made in second. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we'll move on to the Class B combination liquor and malt beverage retail license, Jack's Corner Bar, Hofschultz Brew House, JK Lounge, JS Entertainment, also known Wilson's Brick House, and the Coffee Clutch and Weyauwega Arts Organizational Incorporated.
I'll make them.
Good.
I'll make a motion to approve for the Class B as read businesses.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay. Next, we will look for a motion to approve a Class A fermented malt beverage retailer license for Depot Street Station, also known as Weyauwega Cenex.
I will make a motion to approve the Class A for Depot Station, also known as Weyauwega Centers.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We need a motion then for a Class A intoxicating liquor retailer's license for Premier Petals Floral Design and Event Planning.
I will make a motion to approve the application for Class A for Premier Petals.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And the next one guess we normally do is, I need a motion then to approve operator's license for, as seen for Wilson's Brick House.
I'll make,
Hofschultz Brew House, KD's Lounge, or JK's Lounge, excuse me, Jack's Corner Bar. We will be doing the Weyauwega Star Dairy, but canceling the Samantha Spilcho. She is not, they called today and want that canceled, so she will not be applying on this time. And then the KD's IGA, Weyauwega Cenex, the Coffee Clutch, and Weyauwega Arts and Organization.
okay. I can go. I will make a motion to approve all of the listed for the businesses with the exemption of Samantha Spillar.
Cultural. Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any questions or comments on any of the individuals? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll abstain.
Thank you.
And I need a motion then to approve the following application for cigarette license. H&P of Waupaca, Weyauwega BP, Darrell Hines, Jack's Corner Bar LLC, Jack Jensen, Durst of Weyauwega, KD's IGA, and Depot Street, Weyauwega Cenex.
I'll make a motion to approve the previously read businesses.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any questions, comments, or concerns? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mayor's report, I don't have anything. Just glad that we have some of our staff back, going. We will move on. 5 minutes? Or
maybe
less.
not even that.
Or less.
We do have, you'll see a new light with a new microphone out in front of you. We're gonna be testing that out. That's a wireless microphone for the camera. The problems we've been having, and I believe you guys have been having too, is when we record meetings, the microphone's way over there, and on our camera, it's not the strongest. We tested this out in the office today, and it seems to be pretty good. The problem is gonna be, moving it around, and I forgot to move it, when we have guests coming in, but we'll see how that works. We have talked a little bit at the Recreation Committee about the fireworks on July 3rd. The city puts on the fireworks. This year, we're starting to reboot the event a little bit, and quite honestly, because we started running short on time, we looked into obtaining the services of a band, and we have gotten Third Wheel, which is a local band. It's local, I want to say kids, but I'm sure they're not that younger than I am. But basically, the way we're gonna advertise this is July 3rd. In the past, we had a group that had served concessions, had a bounce house, didn't really let people bring anything in. We're going to advertise that as like a free family night out, picnic night out. The band will play pretty much anything, any type of music from 7 till about 9:30, and then 9:30 the fireworks. Going forward, it's definitely an event. We have the full fairgrounds. There's probably more we could do there. We've been talking at the Recreation Committee about turning that into more of a recreational focused committee, which isn't really that big of an idea, but it's, it could be more event related. There's a lot of things that the city has an opportunity to expand on. The first one would be the fireworks. We have a good investment there with the fireworks, and I think there's probably more we can do. The reason it's so light this year is because it got to be about March, April when we thought, I thought, the 3rd is coming pretty quick. So hopefully planning for next year, we could get maybe some vendors, anything, hopefully this is the worst year that we have with the event, and hopefully it still turns out to be pretty good. I think it'll be all right. We have accepted applications for the full-time position in Public Works and the Utilities. I think we got a little bit over 20. We're gonna review those. Hopefully, because we've been short a couple of guys, or one for sure, that the quicker we can get the process moving, the quicker we can get them on board. So I'm looking forward to that. And the other item is the City Hall Phase 2 design, or Phase 2 of the design process. Cedar Corp has basically taken those plans that you had put together, the rendering and an idea of a layout. They've made it work with the actual, everything in the building, the plumbing, the electrical. They've moved a couple things around, which they'll report out to you next month. You will have a copy of their 3 or 4 page report with minor tweaks, pulling the elevator away from the foundation of the wall, those types of things. They're not coming back to you to get approval on all of these things because they fit into the concept that you had signed off on. They'll be here in July. I believe we had talked about either having a committee meeting or the full city council. I do know that we probably have to have a public property meeting in July anyway. So if you'd like, a quick review at public property and then have it come to the full council, we could do that. Or if you wanted to save a little bit of money and just have Cedar Corp come to the full council, we could do that too. It's up to you guys, and I can work with the chair of the public property committee too. But either way, we will have a public property meeting next month. I think that's about it.
Okay.
That's what we got.
All right, thank you. Police chief's report?
We hired a new officer part-time. Her name is Caitlin Dexter. She's from New London. I stumbled across her while taking a plane to the boat landing. She worked for the water patrol. I said, she was joking about how many hours she was working on the water patrol. And I said, well, if you know anybody who can work part-time, send them my direction. And she showed up at the door the next day. She's a 4.0 grad from UW Platteville. She works for Winnie County 2 days a year for Sovereign Citizens Days, and occasionally here and there as needed. She worked for New London PD as a dispatcher. She's since backed off of that to commit to us, and also she's lightened her load with Water Patrol. She was all fully trained with all of our software, so that was great. She's got experience on the road. I thought I was making great strides, and shortly after I hired her, Nikki Austrian came in and said that she was hired by Sheboygan County Sheriff's Department. And her first day is on June 23rd. We've just passed 930 complaints today. Our busy season's here, and it shows. Nothing major going on, but just busy. And Patrick, did you mention Code Red? I remember talking about it earlier when it was in its concept phase. Did that get into the details of it here?
I don't believe we got into the full details of it with the police committee. And I think it's gotta go back probably next month to the police committee on the financing piece.
All right. Aside from the financing, Code Red is up and working, and it did work for me that last storm we had. It sent a notification to my phone, very specific for emergency government. The storm was 7.2 miles southeast of town. It's working again tonight for the storm that's approaching. And just for anybody who's not paying attention to what's going on, it's about an hour and a half out, and they're having tornadoes and high winds and hail, so be aware of that when you're in your closed session.
Hopefully we get out in an hour and a half.
Yeah, talk fast.
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
All right, then we need to set our your July committee meetings.
All right. Well, of course, council is the third Monday, so that is
No, 21st.
July 21st. 6:30. Finance is July 7th.
No, July 8th.
Oh, okay, sorry, we moved that one.
No, that's all right. We'll let it go.
Hmm?
We'll let it go this time.
Okay. July 8th, Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Public Works, still July 14th?
Yep.
Okay.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Do we want to do an ordinance meeting? Do we need one, July?
We have a couple items that are hanging out there that the Davis and Q-Thaw is taking a look at. I haven't heard back. They're kind of in transition mode, a little bit of everything. I can check in with them on
See
that,
if they'll,
If they're ready for us.
if they're ready, if not.
Yeah, the ethics code is the big one that's out there, and it's in ordinance form, so.
Okay. Police, Fire, and Ambulance Committee,
15th it was.
Yep, July 15th.
July 15th, 6 o'clock.
Yep.
Recreation,
I think it was July 1st,
July 1st at 6.
and then it's 2 days before the fireworks.
okay. Do you want to schedule a public property?
Yes, we do.
Sounds
Yeah.
like we're gonna have to. So.
Jim?
Jim, what works for you?
Do Thursdays work for you, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the 3rd, the 10th,
Yeah, how about,
6 o'clock.
yep, 6 o'clock on the 10th, does that work?
and the 3rd we got
So,
the fireworks, so
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
That works?
Yeah.
Okay,
July 10th at 6 p.m.
great.
for public property. And do we, I would assume we have plan commission for July?
Yes. And I think we probably, did we pick the 9th or the 10th tentatively there?
If they usually do Wednesday, it would be the 9th. But we can double check.
I think part of that's
Okay.
gonna depend on, we're talking about Outagamie Co-op turning in some paperwork, which would need a public hearing. So if they don't get it in,
we could set the 9th, and if it doesn't come in till, maybe we'll wait and see if the paperwork comes in, then we'll set the,
Pending paperwork.
according to that.
Okay.
Couple different things they're looking at.
And I believe that's all the meetings I got.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
Can I ask a question about the
Oh,
meetings?
sorry.
They used to be posted online on the City of Weyauwega website, and I know that may not be official, and I know you post them around the city. Will they be coming back on the website? It's just more convenient than driving around.
They will be. I haven't put them on the website lately just because that website we haven't really been using it much.
Okay.
There is a new website that we are creating, and hopefully we'll get that completed at the end of this month.
We're right there,
Okay.
so you'll see
Yeah.
everything will be brand new on there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna look totally different and up to date and.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Totally. Okay. If we have nothing else, then I will ask for a motion to go into closed session.
I will make a motion to move into closed session.
I'll second it.
Okay. And we have a motion to go into closed session to 1985-1C Wisconsin statute considering employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation of a city employee whose subject and jurisdiction and authority of the council. The reason for the closed session is to discuss administrator goals and performance. Council may choose to reconvene open session at the completion of the closed session in order to take action on these items. As for roll call.
Sandro?
Here.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Appleby?
Aye.
Rasmussen?
Aye.
Gunderson?
Aye.
Edwards?
Aye.
I don't know if we have to sign this. That's for watching that DVD we watched tonight. We get a $700 credit on our insurance.
We'll take a